I've moved out, so your house is gone. It must be tough without a place to call home, but hang in there, my mother-in-law chirped over the phone. I replied with a nonchalant, Enjoy your life in your new home, she continued. Yes, thank you, and please never come back to my house. After all, you'll be getting a divorce. With that, she hung up. I paused for a moment at the airport, feeling not anger but joy. Yes, I whispered, clenching my fist in a small gesture of triumph. With a newfound spring in my step, I headed home. My name is Emma. My husband, David, was assigned to work abroad right after our marriage, leading to a brief period of separation. Despite the distance, we had been dating for 5 years before we got married and had lived together during that time. Our long-term relationship and cohabitation had built a strong bond of trust between us. I wasn't worried about David being unfaithful. Instead, I hoped he would stay healthy while overseas. Our days were supposed to continue in this calm, though sometimes lonely, state. However, everything changed when my mother-in-law decided to move into our house. After being married since David was a child, she was now single. Upon hearing about David's overseas assignment, she announced, "I'll keep my eye on you, Emma, to make sure you don't cheat." She moved in without our consent. Apparently, my father-in-law had cheated on her and subsequently disappeared, leaving her with deep trust issues. To prevent David from suffering the same fate, she decided to monitor me constantly. This relentless surveillance made life unbearable. In desperation, I turned to David for help. He repeatedly asked his mother to leave, but she refused to listen. "David trusts you too much, Emma. I can tell a woman like you will definitely cheat," she accused me baselessly, causing daily headaches. No matter what I did, she always found a way to link it to infidelity. My mother-in-law even refused to prepare dinner for me. She would cook for herself using food from the fridge but never left any for me. Worse, she never went grocery shopping herself. She used the ingredients I had bought for my cooking, leaving me frustrated and at a loss when I came home to find the groceries I thought were in the fridge were gone. Of course, I complained about this, but my mother-in-law either didn't care or didn't listen. "I suppose you ate dinner out with your boyfriend since you're cheating," she would say, irritating me beyond belief. Even when I came home late from work and started cooking, she would cause a commotion, accusing, "You must be cheating if you come home at this hour, leaving your mother-in-law alone." During busy periods at work, when I often came home late, she constantly made a fuss about me cheating. I was so stressed that I even felt sick. "I'm begging you, please leave. I'm not cheating. I truly love David," I told her. David, too busy to come back to the US, tried his best to persuade his mother. Still, her response was disheartening. "So you want me to leave that badly? You must be cheating after all." At this point, all I could do was sigh. On a day off, I went out to meet a friend and was once again accused of cheating by my mother-in-law. Determined to catch me in the act, she began a clumsy attempt to tail me, hiding behind lampposts and our home's brick wall, skulking about busily. I chose to ignore her antics. I met up with a friend at a cafe, rumbling in a low voice so my mother-in-law wouldn't hear. Suddenly, a flash of light blinked a few times. It was her taking pictures of me. My friend, looking suspicious, asked, "What's that?" "A stalker," I replied. Abby, a close friend since our student days and known for her tough demeanor, began to stand up, saying, "Should I tell her off?" I quickly persuaded her to sit back down. "No, no, please stay seated." Abby, with her pixie cut and street-style fashion, had an androgynous look. I joked that my mother-in-law might have mistaken her for a man, which made Abby double over in laughter. Enjoying the spectacle, Abby leaned closer and held my hand playfully to provoke my mother-in-law. Every time, my mother-in-law snapped photos, her camera flashing away. When I checked the mirror, I saw her thrilled and snapping away with excitement, her nostrils flaring as she captured each moment. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Having witnessed my mother-in-law's ridiculous antics, I managed to let off some steam and went on to do a little shopping with Abby before we parted ways. As expected, my mother-in-law followed me home, once again hiding behind lampposts and brick walls. I occasionally dashed around playfully like in a game of red light, green light, while she scampered off to hide. It was amusing and I played along with her ridiculous game. I thought how foolish she must be to think I didn't notice her tailing me. Once I arrived home and started to take off my shoes, my mother-in-law quickly rushed in. If she was following me, she could have at least delayed her return home. I was taken aback when she excitedly showed me a disposable camera. Emma, I finally got proof of your infidelity. I'm going to send all these to David, so be prepared. Oh, really? Good luck with that, I responded with a hint of indifference. My nonchalant reaction didn't sit well with her. She buzzed around me like a nagging child. Are you okay with this? It's proof of infidelity. Your face and his are both clear in the photos. But I calmly replied, that's fine. Although it was unfortunate that Abby's androgynous look led to confusion, David had met her several times before we got married. Even if my mother-in-law sent a photo of Abby and me, David would likely recognize her as just a friend. As I endured my mother-in-law's ridiculous schemes, I suddenly had to go on a business trip overseas. It was unfortunate that I wouldn't be able to see David because it was in a different country, but it couldn't be helped. I informed my mother-in-law, who I lived with, about the trip, but I didn't seek her input. In her mind, it seemed to translate into a romantic getaway. As I was preparing for my business trip, my mother-in-law smirked and said, "It'll be a big problem if you come back pregnant from your romantic getaway. David hasn't seen you in a while, so it won't be easy to pretend the baby is his." Her distasteful imagination made it pointless to argue back. I replied nonchalantly, "Yes, indeed, but it's a business trip, not a romantic getaway," and left for my trip. The business trip was incredibly busy and hectic, and the days flew by in a whirlwind. When I finally returned to the US, I was exhausted. My boss, who had also joined the trip, looked worn out as well and headed home. I had planned to buy some duty-free sweets before going home, so I took a break on a bench. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Abby calling with surprising news. Emma, welcome back. There's something I need to tell you. Your mother-in-law came to the company on family business. The company run by Abby's family wasn't the kind of place ordinary people would visit. When I heard that my mother-in-law had been there, I felt my blood boiling. Abby filled me in on how she had dealt with my mother-in-law and asked if she had overstepped. I replied, "No, I think it was just right." After sharing a laugh with Abby and ending the call, I was about to leave when my phone rang again. It was my mother-in-law. "Emma, you should be back from your trip now. Did you enjoy your affair trip?" It wasn't an affair trip, and I didn't particularly enjoy it because I went there for work. "Well, I've already sent David the evidence photos." I simply responded, "I see," to my mother-in-law, who seemed quite pleased with herself. Ignoring my indifference, she continued talking, undeterred. "Actually, you've moved, so your house is no longer there. I sold the old place, so you must be struggling without a place to return to. But hang in there," my mother-in-law said, her tone almost cheerful. I responded with a disinterested, "Huh," while she laughed happily. "Enjoy your life in your new house," she added. "Thank you, and please never come back to our house. After all, you're going to be divorced soon." After she hung up, I stood at the airport for a moment. What filled my heart wasn't anger but joy. I did it. I made a small fist pump and began my journey home with a spring in my step. Of course, I was heading to the house my mother-in-law claimed she had sold. The furniture was likely gone, but I took it as a severance fee. I immediately called a locksmith to replace the front door lock, ensuring my mother-in-law couldn't get in if she decided to come back. Then, I relaxed comfortably in the living room, celebrating my newfound freedom. I made another fist pump inside the house, shouting, "I did it." The next day, I received a call from my mother-in-law. "What's wrong?" I asked maliciously as my mother-in-law spoke in a flustered manner. She was trembling as she said, "Actually, I thought I sold the house, but it turns out I didn't. It seems I borrowed money without realizing it. Debt collectors are coming, and it's really scary." "That must be terrifying," I replied with a hint of satisfaction. It turned out that the company she had visited, which she mistook for Abby's family business, was a real estate front for a loan sharking operation. According to Abby, they had repeatedly told her that the house couldn't be sold. Since the house was in David's name, she couldn't sell it on her own. After being turned away by various real estate agencies, she ended up at the company run by Abby's parents. Desperate to sell the house, she signed a promissory note for a large sum of debt, believing it was part of the sale process. She hadn't read the fine print and ended up agreeing to repay $1,000 every day. She managed to cover today's payment but had no way to prepare the daily amount required from tomorrow onward. Now, she was coming to me, crying for help. "Please, Emma, you have to help me. The debt collectors are pounding on my door from dawn. It's terrifying. I can't sleep well, and I don't have much money left. I used the borrowed money to buy a new house, so I don't even have any savings. Please transfer $10,000 to my account every week until I've paid off the debt. Do you think there will ever be a day when you can pay off the debt to the company? I don't think so. Even if you combine David's income with mine, it's impossible to transfer $10,000 every week. I'm sorry, but your only choice is to work hard and earn it yourself. What? As if there's a day job out there where I can earn $1,000 every day. Well, why don't you try talking to the company you borrowed money from? They might be able to introduce you to a good job. I meant it as a joke, but my confused mother-in-law said, "Really? Then I'll go and see," and hung up the phone. I thought, oh dear, there's no stopping her now. Later, Abby informed me that my mother-in-law had shown up at the company and said, "I have no choice but to work because I have no money. Is there a simple and easy job where I can earn more than $1,000 a day?" Abby and her team found her a job at a place where employees live in dilapidated shacks used as dormitories. The work is grueling, with people working tirelessly day and night. Even elderly workers are subjected to relentless labor. The dormitory is surrounded by barbed wire, resembling a prison, and employees are blindfolded and transported in a van so they're forced to work without knowing their exact location. My mother-in-law is working herself to the bone, and she'll be free only once she pays off the debt. If that ever happens. Abby, who recounted this with a smile, is a dear friend of mine, but I must admit I'm feeling a bit uneasy about the situation. Several weeks after my mother-in-law vanished, David's overseas assignment concluded, and he returned home. When I told him what had happened, he simply said, "There's nothing we can do about my mom. All we can do is wish her a long life from afar." It seemed David had never been particularly fond of his enigmatic mother. While he had tolerated her out of obligation as a child, his patience had long since worn thin, especially given her unfounded suspicions about me. Curious if David had received the so-called evidence photos of my supposed infidelity, I asked him. "Oh yeah," he said casually, as if it had just occurred to him, and handed me a photo from his bag. "That's Abby, right?" I have no idea why she thought this was proof of infidelity. I actually had a huge fight with my mom over the phone. I told her I'd cut ties if she kept accusing you, Emma, but she just wouldn't listen. It really irritated me. But I thought this was a nice picture, so I brought it home. Indeed, my mother-in-law had an eye for photography. The photo she took of Abby and me, with its picturesque backdrop, had an almost artistic quality, like something out of a photo album. Abby's playful peace sign in the shot was quintessentially her and rather amusing. We owe Abby a lot. We should pay her a proper visit sometime soon. Just make sure you don't sign any documents she might try to get you to sign. I'll never sign anything Abby gives me. Chuckling together, David and I finally settled into our life as newlyweds. We had no idea what became of my mother-in-law, but she was probably still enduring hard labor somewhere in the States. While we could have asked Abby to find out for us, neither David nor I had any interest in tracking her down. We continued to enjoy our happy life together, and I gave birth to our first child. Our days were filled with bliss and contentment.